можно жить его зрение. Грустно как-то, да, грустничковый эффект. Ну куда деваться, ты мужик, тебе отвечайся отсюда. Работать надо. Так, смотри, какой вариант у нас есть. Ага. Ну, не надо говорить просто ничего. Ну наоборот, вот это и есть машина. Наоборот. Ничего не надо думать. Ничего не надо. Так, что там у нас? Да, что-то прекрасно. Здорово. А что чеки виза? Нет, зарплата. Наоборот. Ой, мама, все. Видишь как? Наоборот, да, да. Что, успехом начинается. Правильно? Ну что? понятно. Ой, это вообще Финляндия. Карелия. Наоборот. Да, ну не наоборот, ну нет, наоборот. Да, наоборот. Ну наоборот, потому что... Ну вот она это имеет в виду. Ну мам, что ты, мам? Вся мама. Вот на, вот она, меня. Ну ты чё это, ладно, ты все ну ничего, мам, ну твои уже. Ну нет, так смотри, ну получается так ведь. Так это давно уже, сейчас сколько мне лет тоже, даже не важно. Понимаешь, ты как бы родители хотели дистанцироваться, типа, от друга или от себя, или от меня, или черт его знает. Понятно, да, дистанцировался. А, нет, не хотели, нет, не дистанцировался. Ладно, ладно, я не умею. Давно уже, ну нет, они все нормально так, все, ну, да. Это, ну а куда деваться? Все равно ты из личинки, ну, понимаешь. Да, понимаешь. Ну да. Ну, работает он сделает. Ладно, окей, мама. Мама, да, я. Ну, наоборот. Ну, вот нет, да, наоборот. Да, он хотел, чтобы я помочь просто делать. Да, наоборот. Ладно, давайте.
Have you ever been in a situation in a video game where you've got this really cool weapon or a mega health potion, but you don't want to use it because it's got limited durability, really rare,
Voice reading. Наследие. Наследие. Восьмибитный, что ли, чувак? Это что ли?
I use the terms voicing and voice leading a lot on my channel, and I never really take the time to explain what those mean in any depth. I want to continue not explaining that, so I thought I'd make this video to explain for beginners exactly what I mean by chord voicing and voice leading. If you have a little more advanced understanding of music theory, I hope you'll still learn something as we use the master Nobuo Uematsu's track Eye to Eye from Final Fantasy IX as an example. The track is a simple and quaint arrangement of the game's main theme, with the melody given to flute and an accompanying string part playing the chords. The more advanced you get with chord extensions and complicated voicing structures, it's easy to forget just how beautiful a simple chord progression can sound with the right approach to voicing and voice leading, and I was blown away when I transcribed Eye to Eye because it's a perfect example of this concept. Both chord voicing and voice leading as terms are rooted in the idea that you should treat every note in a piece of music as if it's an individual voice. Back in the day, if you were writing for an orchestra or a small ensemble or a choir, each note in your piece would literally be an individual's, sometimes literal voice, and this had certain implications on how you wrote music. Nowadays, most of our music is created with guitars and keyboards, and composers don't necessarily have to worry about the same restrictions. If you're playing guitar and banging out some chords, you don't really have to worry about these 6 individual notes that you're playing or even know what notes they are. You just have to remember the shape of each chord as you move from chord to chord. Same thing to a slightly lesser extent for a keyboard instrument. You probably have to know where all the notes are to play chords on a keyboard, but you can still think of the shape of each chord while you play without worrying about all of the individual notes. However, thinking about each note in a piece as an individual voice has implications that can greatly affect the music for the better, and it's something that I think all serious musicians and composers should consider. These implications fall into two categories: vertical and horizontal. By vertical implications, I mean that if you take a slice out of a piece of music and look at all of the individual notes being played in any given moment, you can see how all those notes relate to each other and combine to create the sound of the music in that single moment. This is what we mean by a chord voicing. The horizontal implications would be this. If you take one of those notes and think of it as an individual voice, then track how that voice moves across time as you go through the piece, you can see a sort of melody line created that could affect the music in a number of ways. This is basically what we mean by voice leading. So for an example, let's say we have a melody and a chord progression and we want to write a string part to accompany this melody by playing this chord progression. There are a few things to consider first. When writing on a keyboard with synthesized string sounds, as Uematsu.
Что там, до мажор, что ли?
let's say 10 notes for the second chord. You could get away with this on a piano, and it might sound great, but it would sound disjointed and weird for a string section to have players jumping in and out chord by chord to accommodate these voicings. It's much better practice to pick a number of voices and stick to that number as if you only had that many string players in your ensemble. And this is exactly what Uematsu did, sticking with 4 notes per chord throughout the arrangement. Okay, so first let's talk about voicing a chord. We know we're starting on a C chord made up of the notes C, E, and G, and we know that we have 4 voices to use to build this chord. So, which C, E, and G notes do we choose from? Well, let's start simple. How about this C, E, G, C right in the middle? That's what's called a closed voicing, because all of the notes in the chord fit inside one octave with no space in between them. This certainly is a C chord, but string ensembles sound a lot more pretty voicing triads and open voicing.
Ammo, well, you've only got so many of them, and so you go the whole game.
Ну подожди, ладно, допустим.
Notes as adding their specific closed voicing like this. Count the notes down from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, then take notes 2 and 4 and drop them down an octave. Now we have this beautiful spread voicing, or open voicing, that sounds like this. Compare that to our original closed voicing. The open voicing sounds undeniably better. When voicing chords, you should consider the intervals between the notes as adding their specific colors to the chord. In this case, we have a perfect fifth up from the bottom note, and then 2 diatonic sixths stacked on top of that. The sixth is a beautiful interval, and they work really well when you want your chords to sound open and pretty. So we have our first voicing. Now let's move on to talk about voice leading. If each of the notes in this C chord were individual players, or better yet, singers, what note could they each move to in the next bar that would create our desired A minor chord? When people talk about good voice leading or smooth voice leading, they're usually referring to a piece where each voice moves the smallest amount possible to get from chord to chord. This isn't always good.
Without ever actually getting to use it at all. Or alternatively, you might find a really easy way to get items, like Destiny 1's infamous loot cave, so you could just farm that for ages, instead of actually playing the game. Resource management systems are one of the most effective tools in the game designer's arsenal to control the way people play their game. Unfortunately, they're also one of the most unpredictable, with a lot of well-intentioned ideas sometimes having the opposite effect they were supposed to. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to break down how resource management works, so that we can figure out not just how to do it well, but also how to avoid situations where a shortage or surplus of resources tricks players into playing in a boring way. I think these systems can be best explained with the idea of pushing and pulling. In games where certain resources are very limited, players are pushed away from styles of play that are inefficient or risk them running out of a critical resource. Take Resident Evil, for example, which uses resource management to make even concepts like silly Spanish zombies and hillbilly dads scary. The scares in Resident Evil don't come from zombies jumping out of closets, but the creeping dread that comes with running out of the only thing that will stop you from getting eaten. Bullets. Firing blindly at bad guys with your SMG here will mean you'll be out of ammo in approximately no time at all, meaning that instead you've got to line up headshots, as well as finish off grumpy villagers with melee attacks where you can. Both of these ammo-saving tricks, which require you to either let villagers close in or get into melee range yourself, bring you closer to danger and so closer to interesting gameplay. This is all aided by the fact that the game will sneakily increase enemy health and lower ammo drops in response to your performance, meaning you'll be constantly teetering on the edge of being out of ammo without ever completely running dry, keeping you in that great zone where you get to make tough decisions about what ammo you're going to use to stay alive and what you're going to try and save, but also because having to kill enemies with nothing but your crappy knife takes bloody forever. The flip side of this would be the idea of pulling, where a player is drawn towards styles of play that make effective use of very plentiful or infinite resources. In games like Dark Souls or Celeste, infinite resources are used to encourage players to explore and experiment. Dark Souls' Estus flasks, which is a bit of a tongue twister, replenish whenever you head back to a bonfire, so you can feel free to chug them in the middle of a doomed boss fight or when you're exploring a new area, confident in the knowledge that you'll just get them back later. Celeste's infinite lives means that players can experiment with finding alternate routes and secrets without fear of a game over or losing anything more than a few seconds of progress. This helps to take away a lot of the pressure and reminds players that failure is just another step on the journey to success. By altering the strength of these two forces, as well as playing them against each other, designers can maneuver players into engaging.
Шины наоборот, вот нет, наоборот. Не надо трогать. Да. Раздражение, напряжение, да, вот она говорит, это да. Катастрофа, что будет? Что, катастрофа у нее просто, катастрофа, да. Катастрофа, наверное. Вот это, Борис, зачем Борис? Я говорю же, сказал же мне все. Ну ладно. Вот это есть самое главное. Вот наоборот, значит, так, да. Надо петь просто все. Не надо петь просто, не надо вообще это не надо. Не пейте надо, нет, не питерские надо. Вот это нет. Нет, спасибо, конечно. Ну, наоборот, потому что не надо писать, блин, просто. Нет, нету там такого, наоборот, когда...
Or when you're exploring a new area, confident in the knowledge that you'll just get them back later. Celeste's infinite lives means that players can experiment with finding alternate routes and secrets without fear of a game over or losing anything more than a few seconds of progress. This helps to take away a lot of the pressure and reminds players that failure is just another step on the journey to success. By altering the strength of these two forces, as well as playing them against each other, designers can maneuver players into engaging with the game in a particular way, while still letting them feel like they're in control by letting them come to this conclusion themselves. For example, in Islanders, a very cute city builder, your primary limiting resource isn't building materials or cash like you'd expect, but space. You need to build structures in order to get points, but the more built up an island becomes, the harder it is to find space for big, complicated structures like temples, which generate loads of points but are massive and hard to place, or huts, which only generate points away from populated areas. Each building you place needs to be considered in the context of the next 100 or so taverns,
My name is Mel Wilberson with the Division of IT, and this time we're going to talk about Zoom and how to run a meeting. We're going to first open the Zoom app as I have speakers. I do recommend testing it, whether you've got a headset. Today I'll be using computer audio because I've already got that over on the right hand side. The participant window allows me to see who's here, mark, and also select chat at the bottom of the screen. Chat allows everyone in the conversation, your audio, and your video together. I recommend clicking on the arrow next to Start Video, High Quality. Do you want widescreen? Do you want to enable a mirror effect, which will change how text behind you may appear? And you can touch up appearance, which just adds a little blur. So it's up to you. You can change those settings, but it's a really good idea to test. Make sure the camera is facing in the right direction. Make sure everything's going to work before you go ahead and continue to jump into the meeting. I'll close this. Now I'm ready to share my screen. So down at the bottom, I can click the Share Screen button there, or I can click the icon Share Screen in the middle. In the Share Screen dialog, you've got a lot of different options. Desktop 1 shows up by default, and you may have more than one. So desktop 2, 3, those are only if you have other monitors though. If you just have the one monitor, a JPEG. So there are limitations. I recommend if you need something like that, open up a Word document, share it on your desktop, and then everyone can add content just by telling the person who's doing the typing to add it in. You can show an iPhone or an iPad via cable or AirPlay, and that allows the benefit of showing apps that you might not normally be able to show in a video. Of course, you can show your camera, you can show a specific app. One upside of showing a specific app versus your full desktop is that none of your notifications from your other applications will appear when you're showing just a single app. When you're sharing your desktop, all of your email notifications and things like that are going to pop up. So that's just something to know about. However, if you are sharing more than one application, for instance, you're showing a website, and then maybe you're showing a PowerPoint, and then maybe you're ending up with a video, then you should probably go ahead and go with desktop because that's going to give you more flexibility, a little bit quicker, rather than stopping the share, starting it, stopping the share, starting it. I'll choose this PowerPoint, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'll go ahead and start the presentation. It may be tempting to just have the presentation from here and just show them the slide as it is, but it really does give them a much better view of the presentation if you go full screen. So down at the bottom towards the right hand corner, you should see a slideshow button. Click on that and that'll actually start your full slideshow. Then you can go through your different slides one at a time and finish up your presentation with audio. It's a good idea to have someone else keeping a look over your shoulder because right now you'll notice we can't see the chat and we can't see the participants. Now if I go up to the top where it says Stop Share and I hover over that, you can see I can select Manage Participants and it does show me the participants just like it did before, but that covers my slide and that doesn't help me present. It's also very distracting when you're presenting. So unless you have two monitors, I recommend removing that and just have someone else help you out. You can do the same thing with the chat. That is under More and then Chat. Now while I'm doing a screen share, let me go over to the left hand side and select Start Video. That allows me to share a video at the same time that I'm sharing a presentation, a slide, whatever content you're trying to share. This is going to Start Video. While I'm doing a screen share, let me go over to the left hand side and select Start Video. That allows me to share a video at the same time that I'm sharing a presentation, a slide, whatever content you're trying to share. This is going to allow you to have that personal touch on top of it. A lot of people like to do this, again, at the very beginning of a presentation when they're greeting people and they want people to get to know them. But some people do it throughout the presentation. It just depends on your particular content and whether you need that as an option. I'll go ahead and stop video. I do want you guys to note that while I'm sharing my screen, I can annotate it. So if I go up to where I see Stop Share and hover over that for a second, I can select Annotate. The annotation bar pops up, and now by default, I have a drawing tool. So I can highlight something, and I can draw an arrow to it. Hey, this is really important. I can add text to this screen. So I'll say, very important topic. And I'll highlight that. That's Control A. And there's a format option where I can change the color, I can change the font, I can change a variety of different things about the text. And again, this is going to save, if you select the Save button, as a JPEG, that's a flat photograph, in the same file as a recording if you're doing a screen recording. If I want to just clear this off, just clear off the slide, get rid of everything, I can select Clear, and I can select Clear All Drawing, and that removes all annotation. It's a great feature. It's nice when you're sharing information with a class. You can share it a little bit more quickly. So I'll go up to the top now. I'll close the annotation bar with the X in the top left, and then I'll go ahead and select Stop Share at the very top. And that takes me back to my main meeting. Just as a quick reminder, Manage Participants and the chat you can have up on the right if you do not have a screen share going, and you can comment and answer questions there. It's a really nice place to answer questions at the very end of your presentation. Now, once you're done with your presentation, first of all, don't forget to stop recording. If you were recording, there's the record button down at the bottom there. You can also select End Meeting. If you select End Meeting, that's at the bottom right-hand corner in red. I'll select that. You have two options: Leave Meeting and End Meeting for all. Leave Meeting just means you remove yourself from the meeting, and the meeting continues if you set that option in your defaults. End Meeting for all means the meeting itself ends and everyone else is closed out, meaning they are kicked out of the meeting, the conversation ends. So it's up to you. If you're the last one in, like I am, then it's perfectly okay to end meeting for all. That concludes my presentation on running a meeting and sharing your screen. I hope this has been very helpful.
Ну нет, вот именно так. Плохо ем, плохо питаешься. Сварю-ка я еще тогда кашу, что ли. Еще опять. Что это я такой весь какой-то есть? Хер знает какой. Странный. В чем секрет? Секрет наоборот, мучь меня, мучь. Мучать. Наоборот. Ну смотри уже там, ничего, наоборот, давай, говорю. Hello, piano forte, hello. Ой. Hello, hi there. Right. Endurance. Quick time buyer. What's next? What is- Слишком большая перегрузка. И что же пошло не так? Газет не читаешь, что ли? Наоборот. Да наоборот. Что там? Политика опять что ли? Москва опять пошла. Что там? Да нет, за себя не так говорят. Что происходит-то? Коронавирус или что там у них? Москва там что-нибудь? Что Москва там? Не знаю. Рукой надо пошла. Если что. Не понимаю, если это говорит. Вон видите, что это. Коронавирусный просто все, да. Думаешь, из-за этого так спать охота, да, из-за этого, даже, да. Ты что, серьезно? Откуда я знаю, что не хожу наоборот? наоборот, ох, это хорошо. Хорошо. Да, кстати говоря, об этих штучках круглых, ранди, доди. Да не надо писать, это просто. Нет, нет, почему не надо-то?